What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon, back with another deck analysis. Today, we're looking over a deck that I genuinely enjoy very much back in BT-6, D-Brigade, but we're looking at it, combining it with DarkKnightmon and that package. So, to start off, we're running 2 copies of Sumemon. You could run maybe 4 copies if you really want to. I personally love Sumemon because it does what Missimon does, in that Missimon, if the Digimon that's on top of it is a D-Brigade, it gets plus 2,000. What Sumemon does is, while you have another Digimon in play with the same name as this Digimon, it gets plus 2,000. So if you have, say, this Commandramon on top of it, it's going to have 5,000 if you have another one of these Commandramons on it. Or if you have 2 Sealsdramons out and one of them has Sumemon under it, one of that Sealsdramon is going to have 8,000 as a blocker, which is really good. We're also running 3 copies of Pagumon. Pagumon is here mainly to serve as not only a deck searcher, but also sifting through the deck to make it easier to get into your Commandramons later on. Because if there is a point where you don't really need your option cards or your tamer cards, and you really want to just keep swarming the field, you're going to use Pagumon to sift through your deck, so that when you get off abilities like, say, Commandramon over here in his deck searching, or if you already have a Pride Memory Boost in hand, it's a lot easier to get into those 4 costs or those other Commandramons. Going into our level 3s, we're running 4 copies of Commandramon from BT3, 4 copies of Commandramon BT5, 4 copies of Commandramon BT4, and 4 copies of Commandramon from the starter deck 5. So, our first Commandramon from BT3, he's a 2 cost, he has 3,000. Preferably, you don't want to Digivolve him in your breeding area. What you want to do is essentially start your hand with 2 Commandramons, one of them being this 2 cost, the other preferably being the Searcher Commandramon or the 5,000 DP 4 cost one. You're going to use these 2 in your breeding, and then you're going to hard play Commandramon 2 cost to essentially put your opponent to 2 memory at the very start of the game. And that is your ideal play, preferably with D-Brigade. Because you want to start choking them right from the get-go. With our Searcher Commandramon, you rarely want to hard play him unless you are positive that your opponent might try to start deleting your stuff so that you could use him as a deterrent. Otherwise, you're going to put him into breeding. You're going to bring him out. Preferably, if you're Digivolving him in breeding, have it on a Pagumon, because then once he gets deleted, you activate Pagumon's effect first, reveal the top card. If it's a black Digimon, it goes to your hand, and then you use Commandramon's effect to basically reveal the top 3, and then if there's a Commandramon there, you can play it for free. You could do it the other way with Commandramon first, then Pagumon, but I've seen more success with Pagumon first, because again, Pagumon can also be used to sift through your deck, making it easier to get into your Commandramons. Our next Commandramon from BT5, he's a blocker. A lot of people seem to forget that he does not have the caveat that a lot of blockers had, which is when attacking, lose 2 memory. So he is good for, still swinging into your opponent's security. The whole premise of Commandramon and D-Brigade in my mind is similar to the motto of Cobra Kai. Strike hard, strike fast. Every other turn, you're going to be wanting to swing, because that is what Commandramon is. You're swinging constantly in order to kill off your Commandramons so you can eventually go into your win condition with Darkdramon. Finally, starter deck Commandramon. Never hard play this thing. You're never going to want to hard play it because of that 4 cost, unless your opponent doesn't have a memory tamer and you have a memory tamer and you're at 3, or you're at 3 in general, and you can hard play him then because you're choking your opponent and putting him to 1. Or her. And that's it for our level 3s. On our level 4s, we're running quite a lot of level 4s. We're running 3 copies of Sealsdramon. Sealsdramon, he's another D-Brigade. He is a blocker, but he does have the caveat of losing 2 memory when attacking. I have had situations where it's actually advantageous to swing with Sealsdramon, because how it is in your hand, you don't have anything that would let you choke your opponent. So you swing with Sealsdramon, you go to 1 memory, and if you say have, I don't know, 2 cost Commandramon, you can hard play him then to choke your opponent. And it's very useful in that regard. We're also running 4 copies of Mechanori. Mechanori is here to be oppressive. I've seen a lot of deck lists for DarkKnightmon that don't use Mechanori. I love Mechanori. Mechanori should always have a place in D-Brigade, unless you're really going super fast, super aggressive. And while we are going very fast and very aggressive, we need to have some means of at least trying to prevent our opponent from doing too much too quickly. Give them a little more time to try to set up or try to find a way to kill Mechanori outright without giving us too much memory, but they're going to. We're also running 4 copies of Skullknightmon, the first part of our Skullknightmon, our DarkKnightmon package. His when attacking is you may trash all of the Digivolution cards of one of your Deadly Axemon, and then place it at the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution cards to Digivolve this Digimon into DarkKnightmon in your hand without paying its memory cost. So essentially, he is going to swing. You have Deadly Axemon in play. You're going to take Deadly Axemon, you're going to put it under Skullknightmon, and then you're going to Digivolve into DarkKnightmon for free. That automatically will give DarkKnightmon 2 checks, because of Skullknightmon's inherited, and an extra 2,000, putting him at a solid 9,000. That's your combo, essentially. Or, if you are really desperate, you hard play DarkKnightmon in order to place both the Deadly Axemon and Skullknightmon from either your trash or hand under him. Preferably when you do that, I would say the best option is, if you don't have your Memory Tamer, use Pride Memory Boost to put you to 3, or if you're at 2 memory, put you to 4, and use that to try to choke them a little bit. Because if you're at 1, you're not going to want to hard play DarkKnightmon. If you're at 3, you're going to put your opponent at 4 memory to start their turn with, and in the hybrid meta, that's never a good idea. It's preferable to hard play him when you have your Tai Kamiya or Izzy, if you're running that, or one of your Izzy and Joes out. Moving on, Deadly Axemon. We've talked about his inherited just now. If this Digimon has Nightmon or Bragramon in its name, it gets 2,000 DP. He is a searcher. You are hard playing him every time. You reveal the top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 2 cards with Nightmon in their name among them to your hand, place the remaining cards at the bottom. So, how in the most ideal scenario, you are at, say, 4 memory, and Skullknightmon is in your breeding area. You're bringing Skullknightmon out, you're hard playing Deadly Axemon. You're using Deadly Axemon, preferably if you don't have DarkKnightmon in your hand, you get DarkKnightmon, or you get an extra DarkKnightmon. You then swing with Skullknightmon, place Deadly Axemon under, and then put in DarkKnightmon. This way, you're also still getting the benefit of one of your Digi-Eggs, such as Pagumon, or if you have another DarkKnightmon out somehow, Sumemon. Finally, for our level 4s, we're running 2 copies of Grumblemon. In the past, I've always really complained that D-Brigade needs hybrid, because there's points where you might not be able to go into your Darktramon. You don't have a Memory Tamer out, you're at 2 memory, you're not able to go into Darktramon, but you do have, like, say, another, like, I don't know, Izzy Joe. What do? Well, your opponent has no security, you can't really pass turn, so you go into Grumblemon to go for the win. We're only running 2 copies of him because we can only really do that. If you want to screw with the ratio between Mechanori and Grumblemon, that's fine. I feel at least 2 to 3 Mechanoris is fine. I like 4 because I like being super oppressive against my opponent. I like really making him have to work for winning. And then going into our level 5s, we're running 4 copies of DarkKnightmon. His on-play effect is you may place 1 Skull Knightmon and or 1 Deadly Axemon from your hand or trash under this card's Digivolution cards in any order. And then when this Digimon is deleted, you may play 1 Skull Knightmon and or 1 Deadly Axemon from this Digimon's Digivolution cards suspended without paying their memory cost. So, how you really want to, say, play its evolution order, I would say Deadly Axemon's on bottom, Skull Knightmon's on top, and then at the very top is DarkKnightmon. Why do you do this? Well, if your opponent de-digivolves you into by 1, you're going to go into Skull Knightmon. But you could also think, well, what if they de-digivolve you by 2? Well, in that case, you're going to go into Deadly Axemon. You could switch the ratios around that way. It's really up to you and how you want to play it. I prefer having Skull Knightmon on top, but that's just me. Our level 6, 4 copies of Darkdramon. He is our preferable final solution. What happens with him is he has Rush, so he can attack the turn he comes out. This is not Blitz, though. So if he is played and by chance you are going over to your opponent's side of the memory gauge, tough luck. That's the end of your turn. You can't attack with him. What you do with him is you hard play him. He's 13, so you need at least 3 memory to hard play him. When you hard play him, you can return up to 5 Digimon with D-Brigade in their type from your trash to the top of your deck in any order, and for each card you return this way, you gain 2 memory. You need to be at 3 to do this. If you're at 2, because of that 13 cost, that's going to go over past the 10, and that's not going to fly. You're not going to be able to do that. You need to be at 3. So you either need to have, say, Pride Memory Boost out so you can gain the 2 memory, Izzy and Joe, if your opponent has a lot of Digimon out to gain 2 memory, or Taikamiya, or another memory tamer to go automatically to 3. You cannot do that any other way. But he is our final solution. You're going to go into him, and if he's not the final solution for that, you're going to set up your D-Brigades in an order. What do you want to see first? Do you want to see your Searcher first so that he is killed, and then you can go into one of your other D-Brigades a lot more quickly? Probably. Do you need blockers? Then you're going to set either this Commandramon or Sealsdramon there. Do you want to have a high 5,000 that could possibly go into 7,000? Maybe you want to go with Starter Deck 5 Commandra. Or do you want to hard play something because you're all out of Digi-Eggs? Then you go with your 2 cost. You need to be aware and think of how you're going to set up the order, because that can make or break it. Moving on to our Tamers, we're running 2 copies of Taikamiya. Preferably, you could run Izzy, because he is a deck searcher, and you could gain memory. The problem with Izzy is I've had more times than I can count Izzy screw me over because I want to choke my opponent. And during that time, I'm running Millenniumon. So I would have Millenniumon. I need to see Millenniumon in my top 3 cards, because what Izzy does is he will search your deck. You reveal the top 3 cards. If all of them are black, you gain 1 memory, and then place the cards on the top of your deck in any order. That is a good ability, but it has screwed me over because then suddenly I don't have a way to choke my opponent, because I don't have any Digimon in my hand that I can use to choke. So it really becomes a bit more of an issue for me, this is why I chose Taikamiya. Taikamiya is a memory fixer, and he also, during your opponent's turn, gives all of your black Digimon plus 1000 DP. This is making both Sealsdramon and Mechanori at 7000. This is really good, because it's already going to be able to block both Beast Spirit Digimon like Burning Greymon, Zephyrmon, Metal Kabuterimon, Korikakumon, Kendo Garurumon, it's going to be able to swing to block those because they're at 6,000. And then moving on, we're running 2 copies of Izzy and Joe. Izzy and Joe is primarily here because your opponent in this meta is going to swarm their field a lot more with hybrids. So if your opponent has 2 or more Digimon in play, you're gaining 2 memory at the start of your turn. This is useful. I feel like 2 is the good spot for this Tamer to have in your deck. But also, he has an extra ability. When one of your black Digimon is deleted, you may suspend this Tamer to trigger draw 1. This doesn't come up often enough when I play D-Brigade, but it does help when it does, because it's essentially searching your deck. Moving on to our options, we are running 2 Iron Fisted Onslaughts. It's a good card to have, especially if it's coming out of your security. You don't really want to hard play it nowadays in this meta, but it still can come up and can put in the work, especially if your opponent's running Magna Garurumon or Kaiser Greymon, because they don't have the on-deletion effect of playing a hybrid. Finally, we are running 3 copies of Pride Memory Boost. Pride Memory Boost is an amazing card, in my opinion, because it's not only a memory boost card, so you're going to gain 2 memory from it because of its delay effect, but also you're revealing the top 3 cards of your deck, and you can play 1 black Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less, and then trash the remaining cards. A majority of our deck relies on having cards in our trash. Do you want to play one of your... Do you have, say, 3 Commandramons that popped up because of Pride Memory Boost? Where you're going to play one of them, and the other 2 are going to go to the trash, automatically setting you up. Did you get a Mechanori, a Commandramon, or a DarkKnightmon? Well, maybe you want to play the Mechanori for free and leave it at that. So you have now 1 Commandramon in trash and 1 DarkKnightmon, or Deadly Axemon, or Grumblemon even. It really helps out in the long run. The only time it doesn't really is if the card going to trash is DarkKnightmon, because he doesn't have any really effects that rely on him being in the trash, which is sad, really. But it is a risk that, you kind of want to take because of the benefits outweighing the cons here. Now, going into our possible options, this is just a small fraction of what kind of options. There are so many different packages with D-Brigade that you could run. If you wanted to go full on DarkKnightmon, Monitamons here are really good because the original Monitamon from BT-5 searches for more Monitamon, and then BT-7's Monitamon will reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You can add a Knightmon or Deadly Axemon. Those are very useful. You could run Haguremon if you wanted to run a more oppressive non-DarkKnightmon, because you're going to be hard playing him, trashing one of your D-Brigades in order to draw 2 to further just keep the momentum going of putting stuff in your trash. Chumon is a good option because it's going to prevent your opponent from gaining memory except with Tamer effects. If you wanted to run old school D-Brigade, you could run Tankdramon. I don't recommend it really, but it is an option and some people can make it work. Millenniummon is a good option because, you might not have your win condition with Darkdramon, but you go into him and then you just go into Millenniummon. Your opponent has something really, really dangerous on the field. You're going to put that on the bottom of the deck. This is really great because then if it's, say, one of the ancient warriors, they're not going to have their on-deletion effect activate. And then to make things even better, if Millenniummon gets deleted because you Digivolved him onto Darkdramon, you get to play him for free. You could run Alter S to trigger Digivolve 1 on all of your opponent's Digimon, and then delete all of your opponent's Digimon to have 5,000 DP or less, crippling a majority of their regular human spirit hybrids. You could run Omnimon Zwart if you want to try swarming your board more. If you have more than just, say, if you're running the DarkKnightmon tactics and you have DarkKnightmon in your trash, because then you could just go into Zwart, then use his effect to just play DarkKnightmon or something else. And because of this, you can play up to 2 DarkKnightmons. That's an option. Dark Roar is a good option card. You're deleting an opponent's Digimon with a play cost of 3 or less, but for every Digimon with D-Brigade in its type in play, you get to add +1 to the maximum play cost. So it's really centered on having a lot of D-Brigades on your field. Ultimate Flare doesn't come up as often, but it could be useful because you're de-digivolving again, and then deleting all of your opponent's level Digimon with play costs of 3 or less. The play cost of 3 or less isn't going to come up a lot more now, except for maybe decks with like Kaiser Greymon and Magna Guru, because you're running the Bokomons and the Flamemons and the Strabis, as well as Nemon. So that could be useful. Gewalt Schwarmer is a good card to use if you don't want to use Dark Roar. Yes, it's a 7 cost, but if you're going to delete Digimon and you need to go into Darkdramon, might as well delete your Digimon to put D-Brigades in your trash. That's an option. Preferably, you would do this after you swing all of your D-Brigades. Black Memory Boost is another good card. It can act as a searcher, so you're searching your deck for more cards. I've mentioned Izzy already. And then finally, Analog Youth. Analog Youth, you would primarily use him to reveal 3 cards from top of your deck, add a Digimon, and then trash the remaining cards, getting more D-Brigade or your Deadly Axe or Skull Knightmons into your grave trash. And then when one of your level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution cards is deleted, say if you're running it in conjunction with Millenniummon or DarkKnightmon, then you can gain a memory, hatch a Digi-Egg. So that is it for this deck analysis. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like, leave a comment on what you think of this. Are you playing D-Brigade in this meta, or are you working more towards hybrids right now? I'm very curious because I haven't seen a lot of people running D-Brigade, sadly. And I hope you all have a great day.